I am really grateful to Martin for going first, because that's enabled me to sketch out some notes which may suggest a coherence to the contribution I hope to make. I would first, I'll begin with anecdote, try and go to principles and come back to anecdote. But my first anecdote is my joy in meeting Ian again, because it's one of the most awesomely Hollywood movie making situations is Ian's account of arranging with an unofficial SAS operation, if I can call it that, Special Forces operation, to actually exfiltrate him away from the Ministry of Defense and the Saudi government at Riyadh Airport, and you just about made it. That merits its own movie, I think. And also, I don't know if you and Mark Curtis are acquainted, but good, so you know the resonance between your stories about Saudi. Fantastic. And then another anecdote with Ian is that in the early days of Whistleblowers UK, there was a meeting I will never forget online where a senior journalist colleague, let's not name him because there was a dispute later, a very distinguished journalist who was supportive of the organization, wanted top-notch security advice on how to manage whistleblowers, to set up a service that would do all the things. And so we all got together on the phone, our late journalist colleague, Ian, myself, and Annie Mann, who'd been in the security service, and for probably 90 minutes we chewed over the problems of setting up and funding and organize a frontline full-service organization that could handle things right on first approach by a whistleblower across the spectrum, you know, from local authority and health service to the high-end national security and the intelligence services. And the more we went through it, and you know, Ian knows his tech and communications backwards, did it for the army. I know tech and communications. Annie knew surveillance from MI5 work. And the more we went on, the more we focused away from technology and magic and solutions, oh, this trick, telegram, signal, PGP encryption, what the fuck, you know, onto human resources, training people, and actually having them resourced, and just realizing the awesome spectrum of skills and the number of people and the funding, therefore, that you would have to deal with threat assessment, perspectives, the whistleblower psychological outlook, all the things that you colleagues here are academically researching. And we ended up saying, well, spend lots of money training people and buy a set of burner phones, and we're not offering you any ideas that magical solutions and technology are any use at all. And our journalist colleague, not realizing he was still live on Skype, said to somebody else, I've just come away from the most ridiculous conversation. You know, everybody wishes for magic. There ain't no magic. And the sort of problems we're discussing are largely, have been and been situational, and going to remain situational, with lots of people looking for magic on every side, and it's not there. But what is different is, I think I've gone through 20 years of journalism, and no such thing as a whistleblower support organization was even talkable. And I think I would be amongst the first people trying to push the language of the word whistleblower into British discourse. Now there are many with different perspectives. I've actually got a whistleblower whose story is not yet told, being helped by one of the organizations, I think it's yours, to be prepared to take the decision as to whether to go public or not. So that's marvelous. But the general perspective I feel very bad about. If I can slip into academic clothing and think of Popper's view of the open society, where challenges that are what drives whistleblowers are what we embrace and what we here, I would think, intellectually and emotionally see as the foundation of democracy and open society. That is being hollowed out from within, and we all know it. You know, when we talk about whistleblowers, we are really relearning some of the lessons of the founders of the United States Constitution, where the understanding, way ahead of Karl Popper, of building in the tensions, the third estate, the fourth estate, the fifth estate, if you know the history of intelligence whistleblowing. The whistleblower is an estate of recognizing a public interest. Now there, I think one of the colleagues, was it David, who spoke on whistleblowing in private corporations, with respect, I think you were wrong, because there are many, many circumstances in which a whistleblower is acting antagonistic to the interest of a corporation, but manifestly in the public interest. The people who blow the whistle on fuel additives, the people who blow the whistle on tobacco, if you think of the original Minnesota case, which led to the whole discovery and so on. So I think that is fundamental. I would say there are three areas that we should look at. It's the point of view of journalists, it's the point of view of the whistleblowers, and in the modern era, it's the threat of tribal epistemology, which is a confounding factor for the whole of the reporting of journalism, but also a manifest challenge, because the sea of disinformation and misinformation means that every whistleblower who comes forward is themselves potentially influenced by that, is always going to be shot down and attacked on that basis, which is a new factor, and so on. So I would highlight these three areas as different. On journalism, I think it's bad and getting worse. Martin might take a different view. Investigative journalism is lasting, but is being outsourced and moved particularly to NGOs and in some cases to academic institutions. It is thriving. The places that were always doing good stuff, including on occasions the BBC, Channel 4, the Sunday Times, the Observer, they are all still producing periodic outstanding stuff. There's no mistake. But by and large, all of the things you know about from media studies are happening, and they're degrading it. It's a challenge. And internally, it's a challenge to take stuff. Anything that comes from a whistleblower comes with all the emotional burdens, probably lots of extra legwork, maybe security. And at the beginning, you don't know whether it will have that impact sometimes. You've got to do the legwork. You've got to have people, which means you've got to have editors who are willing to allow journalists to take the time and allow for some of that to fail. That's not new. That's been built through investigative journalism all the line, but it's the problem. Whistleblowers, I think the identification of the realm of the whistleblower to support democracy and the open society with the necessity of challenges to their whole environment, to how they may have been schooled, to their whole country. And all the factors that contain, and many of you are clearly working on that, it's marvelous. That is new. The fact that there are whistleblower support organizations, that there are many areas where, I was in the field a little bit ahead of Martin, people like Martin, David Lee, whole generations come through. Every area that we worked in, and we could have probably counted in one or two hands people who were taking these, there are whole organizations covering them, public interest organizations, NGOs. And that means that the support and the access that people who want to blow the whistle have has hugely increased.